Here we go. Coach Magarity, thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me. What a special treat this is. One of my
It's
best players ever's brother. I mean, this doesn't get much better than this.
it's honestly my pleasure. My second guest, my first guest was a good friend, former All-American baseball player, now current coach of Skidmore. So
Wow.
I'm finding a lot of enjoyment in talking to coaches and examining leadership qualities. So if we can hop right into it, my first question to you is, you're at UNH for 10 years, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yep. Now minus, I mean, if you include COVID, third year at Holy Cross, right?
This is my second.
Second year. So last year you guys only had you played BU like 5 times, right? It was a crazy season.
It
Yep.
seems like it was way longer than than 1 year. Last year was equivalent of like 5. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is only my second year here at Holy
Yep.
Cross.
So what was that like sort of managing the team during COVID? I'm sure there was a lot of, I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of issues with the team in terms of like managing stress, but also like logistically managing the season.
Yeah. And especially on top of all of that, we were a new coaching staff.
Yeah.
And so getting to know new personalities and them understanding our philosophies and getting used to our coaching style. And
Yep.
not only me as the head coach, but a whole new coaching staff and assistant coaches and all that. It was challenging, obviously, to say the least. I think,
Yep.
when I took over, it was right when COVID started. So I had left UNH, didn't get a chance to say goodbye to my players at UNH in person, kind of did that whole thing, had to go and clear my office out, wasn't looking to leave UNH. Obviously I was super happy there. I could have been there forever.
Yeah.
And then took the job without meeting the players in person either. So it was like about 4 or 5 months before I even saw anybody in person after I accepted the job. And then obviously hiring my staff over Zoom and phone calls and all that crazy stuff. So then once the season started, it was a huge adjustment to not have a non-conference schedule and not be able to play non-conference games. And that was, as a new coaching staff and trying to get a lot of things in and getting used to everybody, that was definitely a huge challenge. And then, like you mentioned, and then on top of that, the league had to do what we had to do. I mean, obviously we were very grateful to the league to find a way for us to be able to play a conference games, but it was just very strange. I mean, having to play in those pods, and like you mentioned, having to play BU 5 times and RU 4, it was just a very, odd year to say the least. But, all in all, I mean, we were able to play some games and start to implement our style of play and, start to lay some groundwork. And then obviously I feel really happy and pleased with where we're at this year, considering everything. So I definitely feel like last year was a positive for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for teams that are seeing success right now, like you guys, to start off 2021, 2022 season, a lot of the groundwork was laid last year, and like how well coaches, but also like the administration is, and how players were able to handle themselves amid all the craziness. So I don't know if you guys had many COVID cases, but everyone handles it differently. So there must have been like a lot of relationship building amongst the team with you and the players, and how difficult was it to build that connection when you're wearing a mask like almost the whole time and you're just getting to know this team?
Right. Yeah, I think that's very true. I mean, it was hard too, because you kind of take for granted and almost get to a point when you've been in this business and played the game as long as I have, that, road trips are like, oh, we're on another road trip again. We're stuck on the bus for another 5 hours, or we got to fly, or this and that. But then I think last year really highlighted how important that really is in, creating that, unity with the team and team chemistry and all that kind of stuff off the court. I mean, some of my best, you forget about all that, but honestly, some of my best memories, even as a player and as a coach, were on road trips, in the hotel and, restaurants and hanging out and talking and, just getting to know each other on a personal basis. So we didn't get that, even when we were able to play a couple games on the road, it just wasn't the same. I mean, even we couldn't eat team meals together. We couldn't go out to restaurants. It was very strange. So that was really hard, because I feel, and obviously your sister played for me and she's my assistant coach right now, which I'm so thankful for. But, you know, I think I'd like to think that people, that's what I get the most out of my players, is because they feel like I always have their back and they get to know me on more of a personal level. And just being a new coach, they weren't really able to see that. I mean, I have two young children that are a huge part of my coaching career, and they're always around, and they weren't able to come to any games last year. They weren't able to come to practice. I mean, that's a big piece of who I am too. And so like little things like that, you just don't really think about as a coach, but they definitely, you know, really kind of shape and mold your perception of how your players, who they think you really are. And vice versa. I didn't really get to, I mean, now it's been fun. You know, we've been able to do all those type of things a little bit. Now it's getting a little crazy, but in the non-conference, and we've had so much fun. And I feel like that's a big piece of why we've been pretty successful with this non-conference.
Yeah, for sure. And I think from what I hear when I talk to players that I used to play with in college, it was whenever we talk about like old times or reminiscing, it's not about really like certain games or whatever. It's like the connection you build with each other around, like whether you're waking up for like a 6 a.m. workout or you're traveling up to the border of Canada to play Clarkson for us. And it, you know, you dread it, but then you get to like sit and have those bonding hours on end with people. And that's really where I think the joy of college sports happens for a lot of people. So you're definitely not alone there. You mentioned, you know, one of the things that separates you as a coach, I think, is always having your players' backs. And, you know, that's one of your predominant qualities from, you know, what I've heard from Kat and a lot of the other folks in the UNH organization I've worked with. So what would you say, like, as a coach, like you've had so much success, Kay Yow Coach of the Year in 2017, I think WBCA Coach of the Year finalist that year as well. Like, what are the qualities as a leader that you try to bring to the table that make you stand out?
Oh, well, thanks. I mean, a big part of all those awards, you know, had to do with your sister and her senior class for sure. I mean, you had a great run there. Yeah. And Kat transferred to me, and you know, we went from 12 wins to 26 wins, and I think there was a direct correlation between when Kat was eligible and Brittany and that whole class. That was a lot of fun. But you know, I hope, you know, I've always said like basketball has given me so much, right? And I mean, not only just as far as an amazing job that I can't believe like I've done this for a living since I graduated, but the friendships and just the relationships, opportunities that it's given me. And I've always wanted to be a coach. You know, I grew up as a coach's kid, and my dad just retired. He was a coach for 40 plus years. And it's just been something that's just always been in my blood. But, you know, I always just try to put myself in their shoes. And I think a lot, even going through this whole COVID thing, you know, even more so, it's easy just to kind of like, you're a coach and you're just grinding it out, and you're recruiting and you're trying to win games. And sometimes you really lose. It's easy to forget why you're in this, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you got to win games to keep your job. Obviously, you got to recruit good players to do that. But, you know, I think you're still a role model. You still have to, you know, it's still our responsibility as coaches to really try to instill in them the life values and life lessons, I think. It's not just about basketball. It's about how you treat each other. And honestly, Mike, like that's gotten harder. And I'm sure you've heard that from a lot of coaches, but you know, from the beginning of my career till now, even when I coach your sister, it's just so different. The world is so different right now, just with social media and just the challenges and honestly, the stresses of that. Everybody's worried about what everybody else is thinking. And I think in years past, like my beginning of my career, you still worried about what everybody was thinking as a coach and as a player, but you were kind of in your own little bubble too, and you worked hard and you tried to do the right thing. And so, you know, I definitely try to remind us of that and how fortunate we are to be able to do what we do here at Holy Cross, but to make sure that they understand too, like they are just as big of role models as I am. Like I have 2 young daughters that look up to the players, and you know, what they do now put on social media is a really important thing that I think that we have to continue to teach. It's our, you know, it's our program. It's not my program. It's perception and just doing the right thing. And I think that that's just something that, you know, it seems so cliche and so, you know, obvious, but in today's world, in any world, like that really is a huge point of emphasis for me. Always do the right thing, whether it's as a teammate on the court, or off the court, even more importantly, when the coaches aren't around. And, but like I mentioned before, like being a player's coach and knowing that, I'm trying to fight for them, even right now with all this COVID stuff. I mean, we're trying to do the right thing. And I can't tell you how proud I am of the team. And last year, we were the only team in Patriot League play that didn't miss a game because of any positives. We didn't have one positive all of last year. This year, knock on wood, I mean, same thing. I mean, they do such a great job. And granted, that's just a lot of luck. And we could end up, who knows with all that. But, we've missed now 2 games where we're healthy and we haven't tested positive and we're missing games, and it's a bummer. So, I'm just trying to make sure that they know that, how proud I am of them and trying to stay positive, because I think for everybody right now, it's so easy just to kind of just look at all the negatives, and
I think it's a testament to like your culture on the team, like it's, I think there's sort of an integrity thing that comes with players doing what they show on the court and then also what they bring outside of the court. So it's a interdependence on one another, where if I'm doing the right thing as the best player on the team, I expect the last player off the bench to be doing the same, the trainers, the staff, and then vice versa. I think like best players on a team often have to set the standard, and it seems like you guys have some great leaders this year as well. It's funny you bring up social media. That's actually what I talked about, sort of technology, the role of technology in athletes' lives nowadays. Even when you were in college, like it wasn't, did you guys like have iPhones in your hands? Not at all, like, right?
No, I didn't have a cell phone. They laugh because they're like, you're not that old. I'm like, thank you. But I am 40 and 40 in today's day. I mean, I didn't have a cell phone until I was the end of my junior year. I mean, we didn't have any of that.
In college, to clarify.
In college, I didn't have a cell phone. So I thank God, because we joke about that all the time, my group. Like, not that we were crazy or did anything out of the ordinary, but there's no proof of anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Unless like we took pictures and printed them out at CVS.
Yeah.
We have pictures. But like, I can't imagine being worried about everything else. And then on top of like, oh God, somebody, what am I doing? I'm always watching your back as far that's a good thing. You can use that as a positive, but also obviously some of that is out of your control.
And I think it's added like the second layer of, I'm going to go a little deep here, but the second layer of like consciousness, like you're almost thinking of like, as you're doing things, you're thinking of how am I being perceived by others? Because I know it can get out there at any moment. So how do you think, like, to me, it seems like that's increased the stress of athletes in general. And a good solution to that is to increase sort of like team bonding time and minimize technology. But how do you deal with the fact that like technology isn't going away? Kids aren't going to change their habits, right? So like, how do you implore them to stay off it, or maybe have a healthy social life, like basketball, school, social life, technology? How do you implore them to have a healthy balance?
Yeah, it's hard. And, I think you can use social media in a very positive way too. And that's what I've tried to change my point of view in that, especially now with the new NIL, where now athletes can use social media to.
What is that for anyone who?
Yeah. So now it's the NCAA passed that now athletes can now use their image and their likeness to make money off of themselves now. So, they can use social media in a positive way to promote themselves, to go outside of, the college, to go get sponsored by different people, and they can get paid for this. So obviously you can use that in a positive way to advertise yourself or sell whatever, whoever wants to pay you basically. But, on the flip side, that's a lot of extra. I think at our level hasn't quite hit as much compared to a lot of the Power 5 schools, football and all that. I mean, people are making some serious extra money. But I think, it's just an extra thing, I think, for athletes to now have to deal with, not only just like controlling their own social media. But yeah, I think it's really important in any, I mean, even for myself, and I think even my age group, I mean, it's hard. I mean, you see people on social media, like that's like a part-time job for them to create like a world with their, even like with young kids, like create this perfect world that they have and this life that they have, that everything's perfect and everything. Nobody's perfect, obviously, and that can be all consuming. And that's all, for our team, it's important for them to understand that too, like everybody's going through a lot, and it's easy just to scroll through Instagram and be like, wow, everybody else is like having so much fun and having such a fun life. And here I am grinding it out on campus and practicing every day where everybody else is doing. And obviously we know that's not the truth. I mean, everybody's going through stuff. And,
there's actually
hard.
One of the books I read in college to kind of analyze this extra layer of pressure on yourself, I guess, as a result of social media, was a book called What Made Maddie Run. It's highly recommend it. It's a book about a Division I track athlete who ultimately ended up committing suicide, but like everyone was shocked, and because of the way she was perceived on social media and sort of the face she tried to keep up with that social media image. So I think it really just, you're putting more pressure on yourself by continuing to expect that much out of yourself. Like you said, there are good ways to do it, but anyways, I digress. I think
I know, but it's a huge issue, and it's important, I think, like you're saying, like when we are together, to be present and to be in the moment and to enjoy all those type of things like we just talked about. I mean, making those type of memories, you can't make those memories on a bus or at a team meal if everybody's just looking down at their phones.
Exactly.
So, it's gotten to the point where it's harder. Like I remember a couple of years ago, like I had a rule, like, put your phone, I mean, there were a lot of coaches early on, even when I was an assistant, like as an assistant, I have to go around to everybody's rooms and take their cell phones the night before and put it in.
No way. Really?
Oh yeah. Like that.
Can you imagine doing that now?
No, like, I don't even know if you could legally do that.
Oh yeah.
That's a little extreme, but but at that time, nobody knew how to handle it, and I think now it's just, you have to be adults about it. Put your phone away. But again, that's a responsibility, I think, as a leader and as the coach, to say, put your phone away. Just like I would do at dinner table with my kids, or even at family meals with my siblings and my sister-in-law, brother-in-law, whatever. Like my mom even has to say, put your phones away. So I think sometimes different leaders and different groups have to remind people, like, live in the moment, get your face out of the screen. Even myself, I mean, even as a coach, you're worried about, what's the score? What's going on in the league? What's this, I mean,
and recruiting activities,
everything's there,
So you brought up, present-mindedness, and a lot of people would call that mindfulness. I don't know if you guys have any sort of active practice on your team, but it's a real buzzword in the sports psych world. And I think even at the high school level, with some of the teams I've worked on, there are like programs after school, like wellness programs, even if it's just like mindfulness based yoga. How do you guys try to integrate mindfulness, if at all? I think you guys do have a sports psychologist, and wondering, like, how do you build that sort of present mindedness on your team?
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think we do have a sports psychologist, Trevor, and he's great. And last year, when our non-conference was canceled, I mean, we were all here and the school was completely remote, and we felt we needed to do something. So we actually met, I believe we did once a week, and then we got it to every other week, sort of team building and having, communication and talking about different topics. And then obviously we're grateful this year to have a non-conference, but it's still really important, I think, as a group. I mean, I think our team does a really good job of holding their own meetings and talking in the locker room without us. They have a thing up in the board in the locker room, like, check yourself, like, so you can't come into practice unless they check off the check themselves and make sure that they leave everything outside. And when you step on the court, all that kind of stuff. It's easier, easier said than done for sure, and we have a quote of the day every day that we pass around, and just to kind of really lock in and not only motivational, but even like current events, just to make sure like we appreciate, what we have. And, like the other day we gave like a Betty White quote, right? So just kind of like current event stuff to like stay, what kind of marker you're leaving in the world. And, just, we try to do that kind of stuff just to stay, like you said, just be, just mindful of where we're at and who we have. I mean, everything's about like, oh, who we're playing next, but it's also about where are we today? Let's not worry about our opponent.
I love
How are
that.
we going to make ourselves better today?
Yeah. Yeah. I think even just having those daily mantras, cueing your players to think of that for themselves. So easy to get in the game, kind of be consumed by all the craziness that goes on as a college athlete. And at the end of the game, you check out and you move on. And I think a lot of it to me starts with appreciation. As you know, your college career is so short. And if you aren't able to be present and appreciate the short amount of time, like when I look back, it seems like a speck, and it happens so fast. So when I work with kids, I try to get them to actually what you said, I do a lot. What kind of mark do you want to leave here? Like, how do you want to be remembered? And what do you want to look back and be able to say about your career? So I'm right with you there. And that actually segues pretty well into my next question, which is, when you're recruiting, like you said, talent, ultimately you want to win games. We'd all love to have like Paige Beckers on our team. But I'm curious what intangibles and like what other qualities you look for in your athletes, maybe to any young listeners out there.
Yeah. I think that's a great question. And I think everybody, everybody's goal, usually when you're playing, if you want to play in college, I want to play in college and I want to play Division I, right?
Yep.
And that's a great goal to have. But I also feel, for us as a Division I program, it's super competitive, right? Not only for the athletes looking to get scholarships, but for us as a mid-major program to find that right niche. And it's not just about finding the best player on the court, because on the flip side, we're also competing against a lot of, schools that are higher levels than us, lower, different, academic trends or whatever, majors or schools or what each player is looking for. So, I think for us, we really look for the hardest workers. I think that's really, really important. And to find the hardest worker that also happens to be the best player, sometimes you would think would be a norm, but it's not. So to be able to find that, I think is just the work ethic, somebody that really has a passion for the game, truly loves the game, isn't just their end goal isn't just to get a scholarship to go to college.
Right.
That's really, really important, because I think once you get to college, I think everybody romanticizes about, well, when I get to college and play in college, well, it's really hard. It's really, really hard to not only get a full scholarship, but then to make it through and to be successful. And it's a job. And, the way we have to look at it, sometimes it shouldn't be a job, but you're also getting paid a lot of money to come to school, and it's a great opportunity, but you're also putting in a lot of time. And so that to me is again, you'd think it would be easy to find, but it's hard to really find players that still truly love the game when they get to college, that are just, gym rats that can't get enough of it, that you have to say, get out of the gym, you need to get off your feet. And so for me, that's always something that I'm always looking for. I even look at your sister. I mean, she's my assistant coach, and she's in the gym more than anybody still, and that's why Kat was a great player. It doesn't necessarily, and I can say this with all the love in my heart, it doesn't have to be the most athletic, it doesn't have to be the fastest or can jump the highest, but that truly loves the game and wants to get better and is coachable, and can take the tough stuff, isn't just all the rah-rah, can take the constructive criticism and then wants to change and wants to do whatever they can for the team.
Yeah.
I know that's a lot, but those are,
No,
it's not
no,
just about points and,
I love
all
that.
that stuff.
Absolutely. And one thing that Kat has actually said to me often, we kind of talk about her coaching philosophy and relationship building with players and whatnot. And we use the phrase, the journey is the destination, quite often, because if you're constantly looking forward to the end, like that end is eventually going to approach you. And with a lot of athletes, particularly juniors and seniors, you might even see performance decline as they get older because that end is nearing. And so they sort of put pressure on themselves more and more as you get closer and closer. And for Kat, I think good example, she loved it so much she didn't want to be anywhere else besides on a basketball court. And so I totally reciprocate. Players that love it are often the ones that are they don't need you to tell them to get in the gym. But with that, I think the hardest workers tend to, like, there's a clear trend, I'd say, that I've seen working with athletes of, like, the hardest workers sometimes can have the most, like, mental and emotional barriers, because they, if you're not working hard and you step on the court, it's like, well, I got nothing to lose, I didn't put in any time. But if you put in all this time and you step on the court, it's like you tell yourself, well, I gotta do what I've been working for, right? So how do you as a coach maybe make a player relax and be like, hey, you've prepared for this, like, you can do this?
That's a really, really interesting point, I think, for sure. I think we have a few players right now that are struggling with that, younger players, and it's sometimes the younger players that feel they're always in the gym, and which is great. And you want to see that, but it's not their time yet. Right. Or they do get an opportunity, but maybe just because of, the situation of upperclassmen playing ahead of them or whatever, they do have a little bit of a shorter leash, right? So that they do go in, they get an opportunity, they make a mistake, they'll get pulled out. Where the upperclassmen, I mean, it's, typical coaching and making those tough decisions, but it's hard. And it's definitely, I think, even in this time, everything just seems to be so highlighted, like we have an opportunity, we have to, like, make the most of it. It's like we're healthy, let's play a game. And so that pressure, I think, is tough on players like that, for sure. And even, for I think the trickle down effect, and I said this to my staff the other day, it's not just the players, it's even the assistant coaches and myself, right? So we work so hard to lead us up to these next, 2 months of the season for Patriot League play. And two out of our 3 first games are canceled because of COVID. And so you work your butt off for this. And it's that feeling too. It's just like it's a super frustrating feeling. So I think, just continuing with those players is just, you're doing a great job. We appreciate how hard you're working. We see you every single day. Like, you're getting better. It's not all about being on the court, like taking the practice time and really focusing. It's hard because every game is a game, right? But for the players that don't necessarily get those minutes in a game, focusing and being prepared for practice like it is a game. Right. And because, I mean, you know how it is, even this year with COVID, it's unfortunate, but, like, you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. Like, who's going to pop or who's going to get hurt, or, I mean, I just think of COVID now, unfortunately. So, being ready for that, because maybe you didn't get your time this week, but hey, you never know next week. I mean, you're seeing that all over the country, right? Kids that now haven't played at all are now playing 20 minutes because half the team is out with COVID. Like, so, and it's hard, but it's still hard as a young player to wrap your head around
ready
that.
there,
Right?
Like, it takes a sort of, I keep coming back to mindfulness, but, like, to be grounded in the moment and be ready. But that is also, in a way, exhausting if you keep maybe getting excited to get in and then you get let down or whatever. But I have you been watching the Tom Brady special on ESPN Plus?
Oh, your sister sure has been updating us on it. I have to catch up on it. It is amazing, the pieces that I've watched. He's
awesome,
really amazing.
But I think of when Drew got hurt and Brady got his first shot at playing, and he led them to a Super Bowl, and it's like, it takes a special kind of belief in yourself to be able to be like, not overwhelmed by the moment whatsoever. So I think what when you're building a team, building a culture, you guys set all these records at UNH in like 2016, 2017 area. I think most wins in like a 2-year span, whatever, all these different accolades. And gosh darn it, I can't stand the University of Maine for the the end of the season. But I'm wondering, like, what was it about those teams that allowed them to be so grounded in the here and now, as opposed to, maybe thinking about the significance of the game and getting overwhelmed by it? Like, the people that would step up sometimes would come off the bench and put in like 12, 15 points, and it would be crucial, right? So like, that seemed to be a thing throughout the entire team.
Right. I think that first year when we won 26 games, or it was 25 at the time, or whatever it was, 24 going into playoffs. That team, we had all these new faces, and we had 3 transfers, and Carly was the player of the year, and Kat, and whatever, that we were like, whoa, that kind of was, I knew we were gonna have a good team, but then as the season kind of went on, now we're not really surprising anybody. Now the target is on our back. And I don't think us as UNH ever had the target on our back, as long as I was ever there. And so it was interesting to kind of see that. And I don't want to say that we played tight, but we definitely started to play not to lose towards the end of that non-conference or the conference season.
Sort of, instead of, actually, it's funny you say this. Sorry to cut you off, but there's one of my favorite sports psychologists talks about this. His name's Michael Gervais, and he says, the part of your brain that is active when you're trying to win is not the same part of your brain that's active when you're trying not to lose. It's totally different systems. You can't play loose if you're trying not to lose. So I firmly believe you guys were probably like a different team once you hit that, like, ooh, let's just not give it up here.
Right, exactly. And once we won the regular season and we became the 1 seed, which was an amazing accomplishment, right? And that's harder to do, in my opinion, most times than it is to win 3 games, like whatever. But you still got to win 3 games. And so when we got to conference play, Maine at that point was all basically freshmen and sophomores, and they were having a decent season, but nothing special really. And then, it was just kind of one of those things. We were playing in Portland. So yes, location wise, we were closer to UNH, but it's still, it's much different than it is now, where the high seed hosts the game on their home court. So, that was what it was. I'm not making excuses, but we were in Maine. And, I think a lot of things, just the buildup of that and who we were playing again, like you mentioned, like not to lose. And they were coming in, all young kids. They had nothing to lose. They were how we were at the beginning of the year. And it just wasn't and that's the crazy thing about sports, and it is what it is. And that's what makes sports so amazing. Right. And heartbreaking at the same time. We just didn't have a good day. We picked a really bad day to have a really poor shooting day, and they had a great day, right? So we lose, and then the next year, so now we have everybody back for the most part. And people, now the target was on our back from the beginning. We had an okay year, but not what we really, and the same thing. Then we were playing super tight, and I feel like some of the seniors just were, again, just like, this is our last game, we have to do it. And the pressure was on, and we were pressing too much. We were forcing things too much. And it just, again, that was a challenging year. That was hard, because I think we were expected to do so much. And it just was a much different feel than the year before, when nobody really expected us. But, honestly, that's what is so amazing to me, just being at this level. Like, you see the UConns and the Tennessees and, the Baylors that always get the best players every year. And it's still obviously amazing when they can win at the level that they win every year. But for me as a mid-major coach, when you see mid-major programs that win on a consistent basis for year after year after year after year after year after year, to me, that they can change that and the target is always on their back.
Yep.
That to me is even more amazing.
Yeah.
Like I for instance, obviously, I'm close with the Vermont coach at men's Vermont coach. I mean, what they have done over the course of his career and even before that at our level, just being obviously familiar with our conference, is just amazing to me how those players the target is always on their back and they get everybody's best shot every single game. And they don't turn that playing that lose. They play to win. It's it's very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, it is. And it's so I was thinking of Marist because you guys, you guys were excellent while you were there. I mean, Kat got involved at Marist in 2014, I think. So like just following them ever since then, it's like, even if there's a down year, there's an immediate bounce back the following year. And it's like, as you said, like you're not getting the best players in the country. So what is it? And I think it really is, to me, being able to translate what you can do to what's happening on the court. I think there are a lot of teams, majority of teams that don't live up to their potential. And that, like, you hear the phrase open gym shooter quite a bit, because there are kids who can light it up with no one watching, and then you put them in a game and it's like a totally different player. So, and as a team, I think it can get woven into the personality of the team as well. Like the culture can take on that playing not to lose, or it's so much to me, I think, playing free and playing without fear. Fear is ultimately like, oh God, is coach going to take me out of the game? Like, what's this going to mean for the end of my college career? And so like, to me, that was always like getting up at the plate with a guy on second and third, right? I had such a worse batting average with guys in scoring position because I was like, oh, gotta do it now. And as soon as you say words like I gotta, or I should, or if I don't, blah, blah, blah. Like, I wish we could remove that from an athlete's vocabulary. But
absolutely. And it's a pride thing too, I think. You never want to be that, like at that level that they're so successful. You don't want to be that team that lets it all, fall apart, and I think that level of pride and just not only you and your experience for 4 years, but the pride of the program, and I hope, here at Holy Cross, I think we're starting to get back to that tradition because there is an amazing tradition here for years. I was recruited by Holy Cross out of high school. And so you look up in the banners, the 90s into the early 2000s, I mean, they had it rolling. And so I definitely feel that responsibility as the head coach now to get back to that, and I
think you guys, Tommy Heinsohn, Bob Cousy played at Holy Cross, right? A couple others.
Amazing tradition on both men's and women. Obviously, they won national championships on the men, and it's amazing basketball tradition here at Holy Cross. And I think for both programs, us and the men's programs, I mean, we need to. That's our goal, together collectively to get back to that, because the alums are so proud of Holy Cross, and it's our responsibility as coaches to recruit the right players and to win games, to get them back and to feel that pride again.
It's like sort of counterintuitive when you think about like how do we get those players there. I think old school coaching, like when I work with like 50, 60-year-old coaches, it's like they're on their players, like pissed off, screaming. And from everything we know in sports psych research, that's like players play tight with that most of the time. There are some players I think that respond really well to it because they perceive it as encouragement, but majority of the time people sort of go into like fight or flight or freeze mode, and it's now I'm playing like this, real tight. So it's like you think about compassion. I was listening to this podcast with Steve Kerr, and the Warriors have changed the way the NBA is played. They went on that crazy run, and he was like, we we coach differently. Like we give our players compassion, tell them to enjoy the process, and as a result they play better. But that wasn't always the way, coaching was done. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just being a coach's kid, it's like, oh gosh, my dad was a men's coach
yep.
my whole career growing up, and then he switched over to the women's, obviously at Army a couple of years ago. But
Yeah,
I mean, you
a lot
can't,
different.
you got to be careful, and,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's in a healthy way too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's different. I was coached very differently.
Yeah.
Even by my younger coaches, like my AAU coaches and stuff. I mean, I
Yeah.
probably got yelled at more by her than I ever did by George's.
Yeah. Right.
But it's interesting, and especially I think during these times too. I mean, it's a hard balance, I think, for coaches right now to get the most out of your players. You want to win, but also in the back of my mind, knowing what they've been going through for the last 2 years, like it's heartbreaking to me that they have to experience college like that, like during
I
COVID.
know.
It's so sad to me. It really is. And
It is.
it's funny, we had a conversation the other day because I said they all got their boosters yesterday. And I said, oh, how's everybody feeling? Everybody feeling okay? And knowing our game just got canceled for the next day today. And the staff was like, you're so nice. Like, you're just like worried. I said, no, I'm not trying to be nice. I'm just worried about them as, like my own, like, as
a human being.
Yeah. Like, I don't right now. I mean, we have to be compassionate, not as basketball players and how many points they're scoring and getting in the gym. Like, you got the booster shot. Thank you. You're trying to keep us all safe. And, it stinks that our game got canceled. Like, how are you doing today? Like for the seniors, it's really, really hard. Like they're really, I mean, Holy Cross, we don't have grad school. So this is it for them, unless they want to go play somewhere else. So I think it's a lot on their plates, and just, I work, it's important for us, and my staff does an amazing job of checking in on them as people, not just as basketball players. And I really, really hope that the rest of the coaches around the country, and I believe that they are, but it's hard when you're in the middle of your season. I mean, we went from playing great, and we still are in practice, but we're playing really good basketball right now. It's frustrating as anything as a coach to have to pause right now. But at the end of the day, they're still just kids and they're going through a lot right now. We have to be.
That's exactly right. And I really appreciate you saying that, because I think to take them out of the context of the world right now would be like almost not even as a coach, but irresponsible as like a mentor, to be like, you should be able to be the same independent of what's going on in the world. It's like, no, like think of the system they're functioning within right now, the world. So I'm with you. It's unfair. A couple of my teammates from when I was a senior had their senior seasons cut short, and they didn't do grad years, so it's like they only had 3 years of college baseball. So anyways, I could talk forever. I wanted to sort of wrap this up with you here. If there's a question I like to ask coaches, and if you had to complete the following sentence, it would be, it's all about blank. As a coach working with a team, it's all about blank.
It's all about relationships.
Mm.
I just feel, like I said, I mean, I hate to keep bringing up your sister, but like, to me, my relationship with Kat means more than all the games that we won together. Just how I love her like a family member, and I'm just so, and I could say that about all my players, whether they're in coaching or not in coaching, how proud I am of them in any area of their life, whether they're getting married or their new job or whatever. And I really, really want my players to feel that, not only just with me as a coach, but with each other, and I talk about that a lot when we recruit. Like, when you come here, I don't want you to just come here and play for me and, play with your teammates. Like, I want you to come here to meet your best friends and to go to their baby showers and to be in their weddings. And that, because that was my experience as a player. And there's nothing better than that besides the birth of my children. Like, my experiences with my teammates in college were the best times of my life. So I just think it's all about relationships, good or bad. too, you know, that really help mold you as a person for your 4 years while you're here. It's that you can learn for the rest of your life.
I love that. And I think, you know, that's a testament to your success as a coach. I think that's a testament to you as a person, and hopefully, you know, what happens this season. So I think if more people had that outlook, this coaching would make more sense. Like, it would be much simpler. And I think that mindset actually results in more success on the court too. So, Coach Magarity, I appreciate the time. I'm gonna stop the recording, but I really, this means a lot. Thanks very much.
Thank you, and I'm so proud of you too. I've seen you since you were a kid. You're amazing. You're going to do amazing things, and the student athletes are so lucky to have you be a part of their lives too. You're only going to make the world a better place. So thank you.
I appreciate it. You're blowing me up here. All right, I'm gonna log off.